Freedom of Information, the city's most wanted radio station, DXZN 20.10, uplifting authenticity on your radio frequency. Good afternoon, Philippines. Good afternoon, Davao City. You are tuned into DXZN 20.10. Trusted, credible, and nothing but the truth. This is your anchor Yara Palwa bringing you minutes of fearless and balanced news broadcast. For the headlines, Principle of Stewardships and Role of Nursing as Stewards, and Principle of Totality and Integrity. This broadcast is brought to you by St. Peter Funeral Homes. Your death, our business. For the Principle of Stewardships and Roles of Nursing as Stewards, here are Matthew Cedric Bartolome and Jerix Oswald Rolianes.
The principles of stewardship requires us to respect the two gifts that a sensible and loving God has given the earth with all the natural sources, and our personal human nature with its organic psychological, social, and spiritual capacities. This principle is grounded in the presupposition that God has absolute dominion over creation, and that insofar as human beings are made in God's image and likeness, we have been given a confined dominion over creation and are accountable for its care. Stewardship refers to the expression of one's responsibility to take care, nurture, and cultivate that has been entrusted to him. Healthcare practice stewardship refers to the execution of responsibility of the healthcare practitioner to look after, furnish fundamental healthcare services, and promote the health and life of those entrusted to their care. Traditional definition of stewardship. The parable of talents in the New Testament describes another factor of stewardship in which a master divides his worldly items between his three servants. The moral portrayed in this parable is that when one entrusted with something of value, there is an obligation to enhance on it. State-oriented definition of stewardship. The broad definition of state-oriented stewardship is that the feature of government is responsible for the welfare and interests of the population, mainly the trust and legitimacy with which its activities seen by the widespread public. The metaphor of a steward. In the 11th century, the English phrase steward was developed from the term stigward, meaning the warden of the house. Stewardship is a role that a man or woman adapt towards some other. It also stresses that to be a steward is to dedicate a significant proportion of one's ideas and efforts to keeping or enhancing the condition of some things or individual and not, mainly for one's own sake. It suggests that stewards are motivated to act as they strengthen character disposition, which includes self-control and courage. Conceptualization of stewardship can also be applicable to nursing leadership as a factor of service.
For the Principle of Totality and Integrity, we have Mary Hazel Joyce Inate.
Principle of totality and integrity. These principles dictates that the well-being of the whole person must be taken into account in deciding about any therapeutic intervention or use of technology. Ethical moral responsibility of nurses in surgery. The formal external responsibility. Ensure that the patient is not exposed to risks, protect the patient's body, and systematically plan and organize the work of the surgical team. The personal ethical value. Confirm the patient as a person to care for patient and preserve the patient's dignity. Responsibility in perioperative practice shown by the patient always being in mind. To ensure patient safety and create a peaceful atmosphere in the operating theater for the patient's well-being. A personal ethical value to always have to look and take an interest in the patient, not abandon the patient in a high technological environment, and preserve patient dignity. Sterilization and mutilation. Sterilization is also a form of contraception insofar as its purpose is the prevention of conception not by the positive use of artificial methods but by cutting off the sexual capacity in a man or a woman. There are two types of sterilization. First is voluntary sterilization, is that in which a person wills and requests that the procedure be done on himself or herself. Second, involuntary or compulsory sterilization, is that which is done by order of the public authority of state. As to purpose or ends, therapeutic sterilization or contraceptive means the removal of a reproductive organ or a portion thereof in order to save one's life or to promote bodily integrity. Justifications: the probability of genetic abnormality, an individual, for instance, who is contemplating marriage and who has been diagnosed to be carrier of defective genes may avail of contraceptive sterilization so that the birth of malformed or abnormal babies can be prevented. Eugenic and social sterilization, performed for the purpose of hindering the conception of undesirable and physical or mentally unfit offspring. This is sort of social engineering to design a society that is free from individuals afflicted with social disease or grave mental defects such as idiots, morons, and insane persons. Also included here other mentally incompetents and those with congenital, inherited or acquired, incurable communicable diseases, and carriers of defective genes. Punitive sterilization is done as a punishment for crime or antisocial behavior, particularly rape and other sex-related offenses. This is compulsory or involuntary sterilization. Catholic theologians have defined punitive sterilization under the double effect principle. The sterilization is not direct since the primary unintended effect is punishment, and the contraceptive effect therefore is indirect or secondary.
The principle of bodily integrity sums up the right of each human being, including children, to autonomy and self-determination over their own body. It considers an unconsented physical intrusion as a human rights violation. While the principle has traditionally been raised in connection with practices such as torture, inhumane treatment, and forced disappearance, bodily integrity has the potential to apply to a wide range of human rights violation, which also affect children's civil rights. Practices which violate a child's bodily integrity include all forms of physical violence, ranging from corporal punishment to forced medical treatment, sometimes against a child's express wishes. Non-therapeutic and unconsented surgeries are also violations of bodily integrity and include practices such as corrective genital surgery performed on intersex children, gender reassignment surgery, female genital mutilation, routine circumcision of male infants and boys, and the sterilization of people with learning disabilities. Children are especially vulnerable to such practices, as these are usually performed on people at a very young age when they are unable to speak up for and defend themselves or give or refuse consent. The major ethical concerns about organ donation by living-related donors focus on the possibility of undue influence and emotional pressure and coercion. The human body is an integral part of the human person and is therefore worthy of human dignity. It must be kept whole, and no body part should be removed, mangled, or debilitated unless doing so is necessary for the health of a more essential body part or the body of a whole. You have just heard the hottest and the latest news of this hour. This has been Yara Palwa saying, consent is a must. This is DXZN 20.10. The city's most wanted.